are now checking out
the Win Podcast,
where the everyday people
are the celebrities.
So let's get to know them.
My name is Ali Morales. I am from the Philippines. I moved to New York in 2014. I am also known as Spiritual Bird. I'm an occupational therapist, just recently certified yoga teacher. I love being with children, which is, part of my job. I love reading books. I enjoy watching and playing a lot of sports. I love nature. So I feel like that's a good summary of who I am.
Dope. And now I love that because that's pretty much, I have like a question for all those things that you said. So now take me from the beginning. You was in the Philippines. How was it growing up in the Philippines? Because I never been there. So if you could paint that picture for me, because I can pretty much paint the New York City with rats and trains. And I know it's not like that in the Philippines.
Oh, wow. So I was born, I guess, in a middle class family in the Philippines, or an upper middle class. Yeah. And I think one of my favorite stories would be when I first moved to New York City in 2014. It was like almost coming into winter. My first apartment was in the Bronx, like Parkchester area. And I stayed there for 2 months. About a month in New York City, I called my mom and I was crying. And she was just like, "Hey, do you miss us? We miss you so much." And I'm like, "No, I'm not crying because I miss you." And then she was like, "So why are you crying?" And I said, "I have to do laundry." And
so that was the most tragic thing.
That was the most tragic thing initially when I moved to New York City.
Not even like the homeless people in the train. It was like laundry.
Yeah. But yeah,
so then you was on the train. It was like, "Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, if anybody could do my laundry,
I would pay you and you." But I realized how expensive the laundry is here.
Gotcha.
No, and the reason I told that story is because the life in the Philippines is much, much more comfortable than it is here. So I grew up with people helping me, and there's always, family assisting or help assisting. And it's also like more convenient because, I have a car, and there's always someone to like, "Hey, can you pick up something for me?"
It sounded like more there's a unity there, within the family, and I guess other friends as well, and everyone's there like looking out for one another, if that makes kind of sense or whatever.
100%. You could say that, to a point where sometimes you can't say no to people.
Gotcha.
So because the unity it is very, very strong, but at a point where like, I'm really tired right now, can we not? But you can't say no because people are like, "Well, I helped you when."
Gotcha.
So that was like a good and bad side of it. But if you need help with anything, you could knock at like any neighbor's door and be like, "Yeah, I don't have rice."
Now this may sound dumb, but did they have like different seasons over there and stuff like that? Or it was always hot?
It was hot.
Okay.
It was always summer.
See, I don't know. That's why I'm like, wait, you had winter over there?
Nah. The coldest it would be was if you go up to the mountains about like 65, 70 degrees.
Okay, wow.
And it's exactly. And it's only rainy and sunny. So before, I never learned how to I gotta check the temperature. If it's raining, I grab a hoodie. That's it. Like if I see that it's about to rain, I'm gonna grab a hoodie. So another thing is when I got here, they're like, "Oh my God, it's gonna rain." So I go and grab like rain gear thinking that it's really gonna rain. Nah.
So what made you take that big step from being in the Philippines to now coming to New York City? What was that moment for you to say, fuck it, I'm gonna leave this castle and
my servants.
I'm gonna leave this horrible 75-degree weather. It's so cold over here, and you're like, I'm gonna go to New York City.
It's funny because I've been asked this question many, many times, and initially I was just like, "Oh, it's for my job. I wanted to just see what's out there." But then looking back, I realized that even though it seems like I had everything I needed, I knew I wanted more. So there was just something in me that was like, "Is this it? Is this it? Am I going to be limited in this circle that I have?" And there's also a part of me that wanted to find out, if I leave my comfort zone or if I leave my circle, am I going to be the same person? Will I have the same beliefs? Or am I just doing whatever I was doing because people are telling me to do it?
Right.
Or because this is the expectation of my family, or this is the church expectation, or this is like societal expectation. So looking back at it, I knew I wanted that. And, there's a different kind of independence when you move literally to the other side of the world, that it taught me so much. Like, I knew there was just something that I needed to do for myself, and that's why.
Now, would your family supported that move, or it was like totally against like?
I mean, they weren't like super supportive about it. Like the few times I've gone home, my mom would be like, "So are you sure you don't want to stay again?"
Right.
So there's always like, "Just stay here," or especially when our current administration, like with all the Trump happening thing. My parents are like, just come home.
Come home.
Yeah.
They're looking for any moment for you. Like, come back.
Come back.
Do your laundry's clean. Come back.
Someone's going to clean your room for you.
Come on.
Yeah.
So, what were the challenges that you faced once, and you already said the laundry, but what were the challenges you faced when you initially got off that plane, got into your apartment, and like day one, this spiritual search, this thing that I know I'm looking for.
Yeah.
What was that journey, and what was the challenges for you, I guess, in the first couple of months?
I think for me, the first couple of months, looking back at it, the main struggles for me was finding like my spirituality, because I was raised, I was baptized Catholic, but I was even like, I did the first communion, everything, and then I was raised evangelical Christian. So
damn.
Yeah, bro.
God is like your cousin. Like, you saw him on
like,
weekends.
Yo, my uncle.
So
I'm like 6 times a week.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah, I was raised in a very, very like evangelical community where the Bible is law, or the pastor's word is law. You can't question it. And a part of me like is very thankful for that discipline. But when I got here, I'm like, I don't have that support. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to hell if I don't go to church. So, like, one of those things was finding, like, my relationship with, like, the higher power or God or, whatever people decide to call it. And then the other thing for me, the other struggle was finding friends. So we don't value the people who you could just call them like, hey, you want to go grab coffee right now?
Yeah.
I didn't have anything like that. So I moved here, and I was just like, oh my God, who am I going to ask to like get coffee, watch a movie? And so I realized how hard it was to make friends when you're an adult. Because, when you're children, you're like, hey, I went to high school or elementary. But as an adult, most people already have like very formed friendships. So it's hard to like make friends.
Yeah, because you came from, a world that, that you built for many years, right?
Yeah.
And it was already established. And now you go into a different world where it's like cut off, like boom. So you have to start everything from scratch, from, learn things that are to everyday people probably would see normal, from like, I don't know, like you said, the laundry, to making friends, just communicating with people of different races and colors. So all this was like brand new to you, which I could find just talking about it was like, damn, that's freaking frightening. It's kind of like when you are a child going to school for the first time. You're like, what? That's why kids sometimes want to be by themselves, but here you are, it's like, no, I gotta somehow communicate, or because I don't want to go back, or I definitely don't. So was occupational therapy the plan from the get when you came here, or that was something that you was interested in and it was like, what, I need this to help me pay my bills and stuff like that? Like, what was the purpose for that?
I think it's both. So occupational therapy definitely pays the bills, but I also like what I do.
Okay.
I work with a lot of kids with mental delays or learning disabilities, and I love it because I love children, and so for the most part, maybe like 85% of the time, I actually enjoy what I'm doing.
Gotcha.
And of course, it's a job.
So this is something that you went to school for as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So this is something that I went to school for as well. This is what I took up in college, and initially I didn't want it. Like when I was in the Philippines, it just like landed. I was actually initially trying for law school. But then I feel like when I was about to, I think, sign up for college, I realized that I can't do law because it means I'll be defending people who are criminals, rapists, in order to make money.
Right.
So I'm like, nah.
So that rubbed you like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to do that.
No.
And then, but I guess were you always the helpful type? I was in like always wanting to help others somehow.
Yeah, I think so. Like ever since I've had that generosity, I would say, but also it was something that I had to learn from like our spiritual teacher. She would always tell me, you've given enough. So she would say, hey, you have to learn how to say no, because before I would just literally kill myself in order to give and give and give.
In the Philippines, it was like a crime to say no.
Yeah.
So you had to say yes, no matter how you couldn't really be honest with yourself.
Yeah, no.
You had to follow everything else and basically disown yourself most of the time to not follow what you want to really do.
Yep, 100%. You've summarized it.
What being an occupational therapist and when you're dealing with children that has, what the world says a mental disability, a mental delay, what has that job, gave you within your life, and what have you learned from being in those places where you have to help?
So for me, I feel like the biggest thing that children, because I work with children a lot, it's that they accomplish little things and they're so happy about it. So it's the joys of the little things. So for example, I think it was just like a few weeks ago, I had a 4th grader who did not know how to tie his shoes. He was a new student, and so we were like, all right, let's practice. So for a few weeks, we were practicing on how to like tie his shoes. And then one day he just came like running down the hallway. He's like, I can tie my shoes. And it's so small. You're like, okay, you tied your shoes. But because I saw him working to get to those goals, and even now, like, I have students who I've had for 3 years. They're like, oh yeah, Miss Allie, you were the one who taught me how to hold a pencil. And so now, do you want to read the story that I wrote? So because of a little thing that you did, which I didn't even think, I'm like, oh, we're just going to practice holding a pencil. Now this child is able to write a story.
It's so funny because, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like, in the Philippines, I guess the way the culture is, right? And also in society, those type of things, I feel like when we look at tying your shoe, holding a pencil, it's not supposed to be a big celebration, right?
Yeah.
It's like, good, that's great. Okay, now you got to keep doing that, and this is something that you're supposed to already eventually know, right? Yeah. Where here, these kids, where we look at as a mental disability, where these things are precious, and they're showing you that it's not easy just to learn these things. And maybe I'm eventually going to learn it, but what I'm showing you the journey, what it took, and you helped me do that to get to that level, and now here I am now. So in a sense, like where we think we're teaching them, they're teaching us.
100%.
It's like we're teaching them the surface of it. Like here's the loop, the swoop, pull. They teaching you the bigger concept of the overall picture of that moment.
100%.
So there you go. Where you was like, okay, it's just a pen. It's just a thing. And then you actually allowed yourself to like, oh wait, down the road there's something bigger. There's a bigger lesson in here that I didn't receive at that moment, which I think is dope.
Oh, 100%. Even like when my students would tell me, I have students who also have a lot of emotional issues. Like they would just like throw stuff or like flip the table when they're upset. And so even helping them...
So New York taught you how to fight back.
Oh, but I took boxing classes. All of those things. The scars on my knuckles. But yeah, definitely teaching me patience at the moment, and also that, sometimes you hit the goal, sometimes you don't. Honestly. And you can't beat yourself up.
Was that... would you say maybe that was one of the examples of you reaching your step of finding something more that you probably, let's say, do you think you would have got this experience in the Philippines?
No, honestly. Simply because my life there was so structured and so safe.
So coming here and experience that, was that almost like a check off a step closer to finding.
Yeah. Finding like who I am.
Right.
Like basically. It's I don't even know how to put it, but I think it's because in the Philippines too, if you look at me, I'm a firstborn child.
Yeah.
I am like the first grandchild. I grew up with like high expectations. I get a 98 and the question would be all right, but what was the 2% that you got wrong? So now I'm like, but I got a 98.
Right.
So imagine having that as a child too. And again, I'm not saying that was wrong at that time.
Right.
Because, it made me who I am. I read quick. I pick up things fast simply because I was taught to be like, oh, you have to strive for, 100% every time. Because, anything less is just less.
So how did you break away? How did you start chipping away from this structure that was installed in you for many years? And, of course, New York helped you. But what did you do, I guess, to not beat yourself up so much anymore, to not worry about the 2% of what I'm doing wrong, but focus on the grand picture of the 98% that I'm doing right? How did you start chipping away from that?
I think it happened right after my first trip back to the Philippines. It was around summer, and I came back from my vacation and I met Spiritual Water. I was covering at the regular facility. I was actually just waiting for my regular job to start again, and my agency was just like, oh, go to this place and cover for a few days or a week. And I'm like, okay. So I met him and he was talking about our spiritual teacher, Guru Enlightenment. And so I was just like, who? And so from that day, I was just like, hey, I think I need to meet your teacher. And so at the very first session, I met her. I think Water and I met like September. I met Guru October. So a month within meeting him, I was like, I need to meet this teacher. And so when I met her, the first thing she told me is that, why are you so insecure? The first moment, and I told her, I never felt attractive. I never felt like I was enough. I always felt like I was competing with people. It was just not enough. Whatever I did, I could be, on top of the world. And I'm like, all right, but can I go to the sky? So she started like helping me go through the issues. One, why do I feel not enough? What about myself do I not like? Why do I not like it? So it was like a lot of sessions of like crying and journaling and looking myself in the mirror and slowly really accepting myself and loving myself and being okay that I'm flawed. So I feel like that was
the big
transition. And then from then, it wasn't like, oh my God, it's perfect and butterflies. You had to apply the
lessons now. What was, I guess, the toughest thing for you now? You're learning from your spiritual teacher, Guru Enlightenment, and she's breaking you down and you're breaking yourself down and, you're journaling and you're learning so much about yourself and she's teaching you all these amazing lessons. What was, I guess, the hardest lesson to remain intact all the time for you?
Consistency. Consistency. Because I'm the type of person who, like, you tell me to do this and I'm like, I'm on it. The moment you tell me, I'm on it. But for me, when it's like, oh my God, this is getting harder and harder. And so that's when yoga came in. Because yoga was not easy for me at the beginning. You know how people are like, oh my God, this is so nice. I'm breathing so well.
No, fucking yoga is hard, bro. No.
Same.
I never, the first session, and I'm just there in like mountain pose. I'm like, this shit hurts. This shit hurts. Like,
everything hurts.
Yeah, and I'm just holding my hands. I'm like, oh, yo, how long I gotta do so?
100%. Yeah. See, people are like, oh my God, I've never breathed so well. And I'm like, I fell asleep the first 2 sessions. It wasn't easy for me, but even now, like, I still struggle. I would try to every day, wake up early, go do like a quick yoga practice and meditate. But there are days when I'm like, yeah, but it's so cold though.
So how did you? And that's a great segue because how did you get into yoga? What made you want to get into yoga, basically?
So right after I met Guru Enlightenment, she told me to go look for what makes me happy. And so here I am. I'm like, I don't know, like, what makes me happy? She's like, if I strip away all of what you have, what will make you happy? And so I started doing a lot of things. I did dancing, I did hip hop, I did art, and I still love dancing, I still love drawing. I even did boxing, I did a lot of running, I swam, I did acting classes with Victor Cruz, which is amazing, by the way, guys.
Every Tuesday, I think 7
Putting
p.m.
it out there.
Intermediate and beginning.
Putting it out there. But yeah, I did a lot of things, and initially yoga for me was just like that 1 hour of the day.
Yeah.
That was mine. There was no phone. There was no one to see me. I could be like in my rattiest clothes and it'll be okay. But it was that moment where it was just mine. It was just me and, the teacher telling me, all right, lift your hands up, do this. But it was like my 1 hour of the day where I didn't have to share it with anyone. So that's what started it. And then, I just kept going. And then suddenly, one at a time, all the other things started falling away. But yoga somehow stayed.
What were some lessons that, you gave to yourself through yoga?
So when I do yoga, I feel like every single time I practice, there's very, short lessons. But I think one of my favorite lessons came from one of my yoga teachers. And she said, that thing or that phrase or that action which you are dying to receive from someone else, like, a lover, a friend, a teacher, is exactly the thing that you should be giving yourself. So she's like, why are you waiting for someone to validate you? Why are you waiting for another person to complete you or say that, you're doing a good job? But at the end of the day, you should be doing that for yourself.
It's so funny because, like, here goes this same lesson that that you was learning with Guru.
Yes.
And it comes back again.
Yes.
So it's in a sense, like in the beginning of your journey at the Philippines, you start this journey, you want to get out, you're doing everything for everybody, and you want to find something for you, right?
Yeah.
And little by little, even from teaching the kids, and then going to Guru, all these things were preparing you to find something that you really love. Then you go to yoga, and then this teacher there comes out of nowhere and rubs the same lesson that you've been learning in front of you again, showing you like the big message. Is this something that you really love right now? Saying, why? What are you waiting for? You're ready for validation from everybody, but you already have it within. And I find that so fascinating, because to me that seems like a stamp of approval to be like, okay, I'm on the right path right now of what I love. And like you said, for 1 hour, this was for me.
Yeah.
For 1 hour, and here you are leaving a world from the Philippines to come into this world in New York City to find the world within you.
Can we put that on a quote somewhere so I can use that for one of my yoga classes?
I'm gonna charge you for the yoga thing, but give me some free lessons.
All right, then we could manage something. But yeah, 100%. It's fascinating because also when I was doing my yoga teacher training, we were learning about how you are not just a drop of the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Nice. So I feel like for me, that's like just like what you said. You are just not one of the world. The entire world is in you. So it's just constant lessons from our teacher, from yoga, and from kids, from everything.
What was the moment that you want to become a teacher? Now here you are, a student learning yoga. What makes you want to take that step now to be like, I want to be an instructor?
It was also, again, another trip back from the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like the trips in the Philippines are, teaching me something.
Yeah, because they're showing you different levels of yourself that you grew.
Yeah. Oh, I've never thought about it that way. But I guess, because I'm home every year. Yeah. So I feel like that's, let me see where I am.
Well, think about it, right? I was thinking about this too. That touched something on my head because I was thinking about it that how many times, let's take where we at right now, right? Let's take this scenario, and there's so many times that we revisit this theater where we at.
Yes.
But we revisit them at different times in our life.
Yes.
Let's say you revisited the first time you helped me with the show. This was like, I don't know, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You are a different person than where you were 3 years ago to where you at right now.
Oh, yeah.
So this is like same example when you go back to the Philippines. You visit the Philippines when you first came, the first experience, and you getting questioned over there, whatever.
Yeah.
Then you went back again probably 2 years later,
Yeah.
a different version of yourself. So you always going to be revisiting these places, but as a newer version of yourself. And then you may get challenged, and which is fine, but you're also going to see different growths. So
100%.
certain things that probably was messing with you before at a different version of Allie was not going to affect you now at this different version of Allie. So I think that's very interesting. How you said going back to the Philippines
And then
made you spark, I guess, the yoga teacher. Now dive into that.
Exactly. So what happened was on my last visit, which was December of 2017 to like January of 2018, I got back here, and there was like just a nagging feeling. I'm like, I need to do something. Like, I need to share this. Like, there's so much change in me. When I was in the Philippines, even my sister was just like, "You're not so mad now." It's like you feel so light. And she's like, you're always happy. You barely get mad, and when you get mad, we know now it's serious. Like you're not just bugging out or something.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, yeah. So when I get that feedback, I'm like, why am I getting that feedback? And what got me to change for the better, to grow? And so I pinpointed it to yoga, which was also, I feel like, the best avenue to share my spirituality. The lessons that Guru Enlightenment has taught us as well. It's the perfect mix between moving my body, which I absolutely love, and also sharing spirituality with other people and healing and caring, all in this space of also, let's not be hypocritical about this, paying my bills.
Right.
So it was like the perfect avenue, and there was just like such a need in me. And I also went to my teacher, and I'm like, I want to teach. And she just goes, what sparked this? And she was just like, see, here, go to this place. Ishta Yoga is the name of my studio. So they were just like, go to this place. They're having like a 200-hour teacher training, like workshop or something, or info session.
Nice.
And so I went, and I was just like, yep.
Automatically you had that
I'm
feeling,
doing this. Yeah.
How was the process of becoming a yoga teacher? Was the journey fearful, doubts? Did you ever almost give up?
So it's funny because so I've only started practicing yoga itself 2016. So you could say I'm still very much a beginner. I'm still very much a beginner.
You're a baby yogi.
Yeah, I'm still a baby yogi, 100%.
Is that even a term that they're using there or no?
We'll take it.
All right, we'll take it. Baby yogi.
But there were so many times before the training that I would just, maybe I shouldn't do this. I would call friends like bawling, like in the middle of the night. Like I would have panic attacks, and I would be just so anxious when before the training started. They're like, what if I can't do this? What if all my classmates are like, 10 years practicing yoga? What if they could do like one finger handstand or something?
Here goes the old version of Allie.
Yes.
Why not me? Beating you down, down.
100%. Like it showed up when there was something new. It just showed up where I was just like, oh my God, what if I'm not good enough? That came back again. What if I'm not good enough?
So what did you do to keep going? What made you keep going?
I just said, what am I going to lose? Like, honestly, and again, a lot of sessions with Guru Enlightenment, and she was just like, all right, so if you're not as good as them, then learn. She's like, why are you worried? Why are you comparing your journey to another person's journey? Why do you keep looking at other people's journey? So I'm like,
because that's what you're so used to in the Philippines and coming over here. You're so used to looking at, and also not only in the Philippines, I would say. I mean, you're sharing the story, and I see where it came from. But even here too, growing up here, we always compare ourselves to the next man, everybody else.
Like wearing the better clothes.
Yeah, what are they doing? What he's doing? Why he has that? Why I can't get that? Well, I'm gonna try to get that. No, I don't think I deserve that. It's always this constant self, betrayal of ourselves. What is the difference you see in yourself from, or what you get from performing yoga, I guess? I mean, learning yoga and teaching yoga. Practicing yoga and also teaching it. So student, teacher, what are the differences you see?
So you're asking the difference now.
Right now,
Right
yeah.
now.
So now, when you practice yoga as a student, what is the difference between that and then actually the next day becoming a teacher and teaching it?
So for me, while I'm practicing yoga, I feel like I'm not only practicing for myself now. Now I feel like I'm also practicing so I can be a better teacher for my students. So it's still my hour, but because I'm not bothered by a phone, or I'm not bothered by what the person next to me is doing.
Yeah.
But now I feel like when I'm practicing, I'm like, oh, that's good. I'm gonna copy that,
Nice.
and I'm gonna put it in my next sequence.
Yeah.
Or after I practice, I could be like, I wonder why she did that. Was there something particular about that sequence that I like?
Is now you are hitting on the lesson that Guru taught you. It's like, why are you? So if you're not good, just learn.
Yeah.
So now here you are learning that and learning that lesson. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna feel threatened by this person.
Yeah.
I'm gonna borrow some of this stuff and get better, add it to my repertoire. This whole thing is just accumulative knowledge, and if it works for me, it doesn't. If it does work, I'm gonna use it. And instead of you looking at you as an enemy, I'm gonna look at you as a friend
And as a
and
resource.
as a lesson.
Teacher.
Yeah. So I think that for me, hearing that helped you.
Oh yeah. And it's now like I am the most annoying person now sometimes, I feel like, because I would literally ask everything now. If I don't, before I would have pride.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna Google that.
Yeah.
Like, nah, I'm not gonna ask. Why am I gonna ask? I should know that. But now I always I don't know. There's something so liberating when someone asks me, what about this? And I can just say, oh, I don't know.
No, I agree, because that for me was one of the biggest takeaways for me, that as I started learning a lot about life was asking questions.
Yes.
And even when I did comedy or whatever, I studied myself, and I would ask the next man, how did you do that? How did you did this? I would ask Guru alignment questions as well, because I want to know. And if I don't know, I'm going to ask. And if I do know, I want to know how to get better from what I know.
Yes.
So I agree 100% how what you just shared. When you look back of your whole life, from this whole journey that you came from the Philippines and now where you at right now, what is some advice you would give others? If there was, 4 other alleys in this room right now, and you had to talk to them, what advice would you give to them? Because there's so many alleys in that world too.
Yeah.
I was once you,
And yeah.
So what advice would you give them knowing where you at right now?
The first one is that you are enough. It's very simple. I actually have it tattooed on my wrist. It's the only tattoo that's visible in my body that anyone else can see. It's a reminder for me that you are enough. I feel like that's such an easy thing to say, but such a hard thing to accept.
Love it.
In a world where social media is like, your butt's not big enough, or your butt's too big, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're too loud, you're too quiet, you're too shy, you're too crass, you're too classy, you're too proud, you're too this. In every moment in your life, you are enough.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing
Yes.
that. So now we got to know you as a person, spiritually, a baby yogi, all that.
Baby yogi. I like that.
We're going to go into our first segment of the interview, and it's called Let's Look Inside.
Okay.
Now, the first question for that segment is there a meaning to life? And if so, what is it to you?
The meaning of life is living it to the fullest, but also making sure that along the way, you're not hurting anyone.
Dope. The second question to Let's Look Inside is, if you can teach everyone one concept, what will be the concept that has the most positive impact on society?
Be more generous.
Dope. Love it. Damn, you coming out with some great answers. Segment 2 of the interview is Words from my spiritual teacher, Guru Enlightenment. As you both guys heard today, that's our spiritual teacher, and she teaches us spirituality, to believe in yourself. And, I could go on and on and on. You guys have heard it into other podcast episodes as well. And she teaches the workshops for free. She does one-on-one sessions for free. And I think by now you should have reached out to her. You should have emailed her. You should have done something with your life. So in this segment, I'm going to share some of her writings from her website. This one is called I. And it goes, when I say think about yourself, I mean get to learn about yourself and deal with your issues. Become the person you should have been. When you don't allow yourself to be who you were meant to be, you tend to have many regrets later in life because you didn't follow your journey. How did you feel hearing about that?
I feel like when, she basically summarized my entire life story. Right? Like the moving from the Philippines, trying to be who I need to be. And, if I don't do it, if I stayed in the Philippines, if I stayed in my comfort zone, I would be okay. I would be safe. But would I have been happy? Would I have lived my life the way I am living it now? Content, happy, kinder, much, much kinder than who I am in the Philippines. And that entire teaching is just teaching all of us to just go for it. Go for what makes your soul soar, what makes your heart just,
pump,
burst into happiness or whatever makes you happy. Go for it.
I'm so happy and so proud of you because, when I pick out these things, I don't do it saying, oh, this would be good for this person. Yeah. I literally just go on the website or I go on her book and pick something and just go, open it up.
Yeah.
And it's been 100 out of 100 times.
Yeah.
The things that I end up picking always represents the journey that the person just shared on the podcast. Message. So I give the guests an opportunity to see what they feel. Not saying what they feel is wrong. No, not at all.
Yeah.
But if they don't see the connection with that passage to their life, I bring it back to them and say, wow, you know what? This resembles what you just been through. And honestly, you nailed it right on the head. I was going to say, yes, this is you all the way. You have to learn how to think about yourself. You have to learn how to put yourself first. You have to learn to find out who and what you are by leaving the Philippines and learning through these teachers that you met. Guru Enlightenment, your yoga teacher, your friends.
100%.
You got to learn from this because it's teaching you about yourself.
Yes.
And you followed and you are following your journey. So I'm glad you saw that in this passage.
And a lot of people I feel like say, but what if it's selfish? So I've encountered a lot of people who would say, oh, but if I do that, then so-and-so is going to get hurt. Their pride and ego is going to get hurt. Or my pride and ego is going to get hurt because I feel like that's something that's below me. But if you know that that's your journey, throw away the pride, throw away the ego. And if the people around you really love you, they'll eventually see that what you're doing for your journey, as long as it's the good journey that you're actually supposed to go to, they're all going to see that it's making you happy and they're going to be happy for you.
Thank you for checking out the episode. Please help us out by subscribing to our podcast, writing a review, sharing with a friend, or leaving a comment. Thank you. This will help us so much.